The last 20 weeks have been some of the most joyful, but also the most difficult weeks of my entire life. And finding out that I was pregnant was one of the greatest gifts of my entire life, but at the same time, it has come with a handful of fears and anxieties and worries that I have not yet to feel until this point in my life. And so I want to share with you the first 20 weeks of my pregnancy journey, talking about the fears, the anxieties, the worries, but also the joys and the beauty of it all. So let's get into that right now and let's chat about this fun phase of life that I am currently in. Hi, my name is Bailey Tarosian, and I have been making a series called Becoming about becoming the best version of myself as I enter this period of my mid-20s and kind of just figuring out life, because I'm going through a lot of life transitions right now. But this video is not part of that series, but if you are kind of interested in that general thing, feel free to follow along, because I do share a little bit more about my pregnancy journey and my feelings in those videos, and I plan to as well in the future. But this video is just going to be focused specifically on my pregnancy and all the feelings and all the things that have happened. I am unfortunately somebody that deals with a lot of spotting during pregnancy, apparently, and that has been very, very scary, and I have not felt great about that, but everything's fine as far as we know right now, so we're just going to take it day by day and do our best not to get too anxious, even though I can't say that I have done the best job with that. Without further ado though, let's just get right into it. When me and my husband first started talking about having kids, it was a few months after we got married. We have been married for less than a year, and so we kind of had talked about having kids, but not in any sort of serious way at first. But then, I was kind of like, I do want to have kids because I'm a stay-at-home wife right now, and it kind of makes sense that this is a great time for us to have kids, especially with this economy where childcare is so expensive and there's not really any help with that. Me being a stay-at-home mom, it could be beneficial, at this point for us to have kids, since we are like pretty stable financially at this moment, and I can stay home with the baby and take care of her or him at the time. We didn't know which one it was going to be, and so I was like, let's just do this. And I was very excited, even though I had always been the person that was unsure if I wanted kids. But it was like we got married, and then all of a sudden I feel like the urge to have children kind of hit me, and I was really excited for that phase of our life. I grew up in Ohio, and we did not have the best health class, I guess you could say. So while I obviously know the basic mechanics of reproduction, there were so many things that went into trying to conceive. And if you look up any part of the trying to conceive community online, if you have not already, you know that world on the internet can be a very scary side of the internet. You hear a lot of stories of people that take 6, 7, 8 years to try to conceive, that have to go through multiple rounds of IVF. And while I sympathize and I understand that struggle is very real, that's also not the story for everybody. And I feel like what we see on social media and what we see on the internet is a little overinflated, I think, from how most of the world deals with it, because you don't complain or you don't say anything if you're not going through something bad. But if you have gone through something like a struggle like that, you're obviously more likely to share. So in my head, not having any sort of health knowledge of any like scientific value, I guess you could say, and also seeing that trying to conceive community that does tend to skew towards sharing stories that are more, takes many years to conceive and stuff, I was worried that we were not going to be able to have a baby for years. And so I said, well, let's start trying now, because I know that this is going to take probably 3, 4, 5 years. Like, I just know this is going to be a long ordeal here. However, like literally the 2 weeks after we started trying, and I went off my birth control, we found out we were pregnant. I got the faintest line, which I might post to my Instagram at some point if I do another video talking about this, because it was so faint I couldn't even tell if there was a line or not. And my husband's colorblind, so he really couldn't tell. I was trying to text a picture to my mom in Ohio, and I was like, is this positive? Like, I don't know, because I just genuinely couldn't tell if it was positive or if it was an evap line or what, because yeah. So anyways, so the test kept getting darker, and for the first like good 7 weeks of the pregnancy, maybe a little bit more, I was literally testing every single day. Until I started having that effect where the line just gets lighter because you're too far into your pregnancy and it oversaturates the line. I forget what that effect is called, but yeah, and that started freaking me out. And I just was so nervous, like every single day. I was literally testing like 2, 3, 4 times a day, and I probably spent like $300, $400 in pregnancy tests because I had heard all of these horror stories about the worst case scenarios. Also, when I found out that I was pregnant, I, told a few family members because I did not want to be alone in that if something were to happen. And next time I am pregnant, if there is a next time, I think that I'm probably just maybe not going to say anything this time around for a few weeks. Just, because I don't need to hear all the negative horror stories of what happens when you're pregnant. I've heard them all now and I don't really need to hear them again. But a lot of my family who have had miscarriages in the past, they were very apt to tell me about that and how that's probably going to happen and how, you have to give it some time because it might not stick. And I understand that those are all very real possibilities, but that is the last thing that somebody who just found out that they're pregnant and who doesn't really know a ton is wanting to hear about the whole thing. And so I was just so anxious. And then at 6.5 weeks or so, I started spotting, and I had already had some spotting like prior to the positive test, which I think is what they call implantation bleeding, although I'm not 100% sure, and I wasn't too concerned about that because I didn't get the positive test until right after that. But I started having some spotting, and so me and my husband, we quickly rushed off to the ER because I was sure that everything that everybody had said had come true. But when they did the ultrasound and they did everything else, everything came back looking normal. So there really wasn't any sort of cause for concern there. And they just sent me home, and I was supposed to meet with my doctor a day or two later anyways. I think we maybe went on a Friday, and it was like just over the weekend or something. So anyway. So then at 7 weeks, my first appointment rolls around. At this point, I'm still testing literally every day because I'm just trying to make sure that it's real and that it's gonna stick. And with the spotting, I was even more concerned. And we go into my first appointment at 7 weeks, and we get to see the ultrasound, and she's just like a tiny little nugget on the screen, really. And then we got to see her heartbeat and hear her heartbeat, and they said everything looked normal. Which was great, and I felt so overjoyed. But this was right at the time where I started experiencing like really heavy symptoms, because before it was just like little things within my body that I kind of, felt were different, like, the sore breast, and I also was having, different discharge. Sorry, TMI, these videos, I think these pregnancy videos are all a little bit TMI, but, and then I also had one night where I felt like very like shivery, like not like cold chill shivery, but like my skin is crawling kind of shivery, which I'm guessing was probably a little bit of a change in hormones, that my body was just like, ugh, I don't know, I didn't like it. But then 7 weeks was when like all the like nausea, the dizziness, all of that kind of stuff started. And I remember going to my 7-week appointment like not knowing if I'd be able to walk in there because I was so dizzy. I felt like I had the worst case of vertigo. I literally had to like lay in bed all day before the appointment because I just genuinely could not move without feeling like I was going to pass out. But that appointment came and went, and then the next few weeks passed, and while I was at my 7-week appointment, she had asked if I wanted any meds for nausea, and I said no because at that point I hadn't really experienced any severe nausea. I was feeling a little queasy just because I was dizzy at the actual 7-week appointment, but I was like, no, I'm good, like I feel great, and I don't like to take medications if I don't need them, but like if I need them, I'll call you and let you know. So the next 2 days pass, and we were supposed to leave for a trip to go to Wrightwood, California, up in the mountains, out in the desert somewhere. The high desert, I think is what it's called. And I was all excited, and we are about to leave. Well, we leave for the trip actually. And while we're on the trip, I am throwing up like literally like every hour on the hour. Like I can't keep anything down. I felt ridiculously sick to the point where like I wasn't able to hold fluids down, I wasn't able to hold food down, and we were with 2 other friends of ours who are part of my husband's PhD program, and that was just very embarrassing having to throw up because there wasn't a lot of privacy in the cabin that we were staying in. And so while it was beautiful and it was awesome to be able to take a trip out there, I just felt so ridiculously sick the entire time. And so I had to message my doctor and be like, please, if you could give me any sort of medicine, I would be gratefully, I'd be so appreciative. And she prescribed me some stuff so I could pick it up when we got back, but I had to basically deal with a week of just constant vomiting and just feeling awful. I literally just could not move. I ended up having to sleep while everybody else went out hiking and did all the stuff that they did, because anytime I would try to move, or I got too hot, or I just did literally anything, I got like a horrible headache and I would just vomit, and it was awful. My doctor prescribed me Diclogis, which is I think part vitamin B6 or vitamin B9 and then a Unisum kind of tablet together. But she just prescribed it. It's like in one pill form, and it's like FDA approved for pregnancy. So I started taking that one at night, and it's supposed to help in the morning with morning sickness. And that's been like my constant medication that I've been taking even up until this point at almost 20 weeks, because I still feel very, very nauseous if I don't take meds, and I get really bad headaches as well. And then she also prescribed me Zofran, which I know some people don't prescribe that so early on, but I was quite literally so sick. Didn't end up taking that one, but it was nice to have if I needed it. And so that was kind of what the next few weeks looked like after that, was just me being super, super sick, feeling super, super horrible. And then I think maybe around week 9, the spotting came back, and oh my gosh, it was just like so stressful, because the spotting would only last like maybe 2 minutes. Like, you know, it would literally be like while I was sitting on the toilet, like afterwards I would wipe, and then I would, you know, check again like not too long after, and it would be gone. But it was still just so alarming, because, you know, you always hear these worst case scenarios, and it's still pretty early at that point. And while we had seen the baby's heartbeat, you know, that doesn't necessarily mean that things were going to be okay. And so that caused a lot of stress and a lot of pressure for me. And I had a very hard time dealing with that. And so I think I just kind of cried until I think our 13-week scan was when we did our nuchal translucency sometime around then. I literally just was a hot mess all the way up until 13 weeks when we did that nuchal translucency scan. Because I am a worrier and a researcher, I was trying to look up what a good versus like a, you know, not so positive nuchal translucency scan looked like and stuff. At that point, me and my husband had decided that if we were to have a baby with Down syndrome and stuff, we were going to keep the baby, obviously. I personally don't know how, I mean, in my opinion, and this is no judgment for anyone else, but in my opinion, I don't know how you can see your baby on an ultrasound and then choose to terminate that pregnancy. But I do understand that there are situations which I am not privy to, and those situations all need to be discussed with your medical provider. But for me personally, you know, I was like, I don't want to take that action. And so we decided to, we decided to go into it just trying to be positive. And at this point, we had also gotten our NIPT testing. It's like NIPT. I don't know exactly what it stands for, sorry, but it's basically a DNA test that can tell you the gender of the baby, as well as some of the most common chromosomal abnormalities and stuff. So we had gotten a pretty low risk on that, and I am pretty young, so that probably contributes a lot to the fact that we weren't getting a positive result on that and stuff, or we didn't have anything that was like adverse on that as well. So we went into it kind of feeling like, okay, hopefully we can just breathe, and they said everything looked great. They said she had a very, good nuchal lucency score, or whatever the heck they do, and we left feeling good. We saw our baby, and I think that was for my husband the moment that it clicked, because when we first saw her on the ultrasound at 7 weeks, she was literally just a little nugget in a fetal pole or something like that. That's what they called it, the fetal pole. I don't know. And so at the next appointment, she actually looks like a baby. So my husband was finally processing it and stuff. We were really excited. We left. We were so happy. Everything was going well. And now we've been just, I think we went to another appointment at 15 weeks with my OB, and not with maternal fetal medicine, because they have us going to maternal fetal medicine for any of the big scans, like the 13 and the 20-week scan. But we went back to my OB for another appointment. It was like 15 minutes long. It was like, okay, here's a picture of your baby. Okay, move on along. And that was it. And now we are almost here to 20 weeks, but the gap between that has not been easy, so let me tell you about that. Between 13 weeks and 20 weeks, everything was going pretty good. I hadn't had any spotting for a while at this point, which the spotting, my doctor said, was all normal. It's just due to hormonal changes and that kind of thing. So if you are one of those people that has a lot of spotting, it doesn't necessarily mean anything is wrong. She basically told me to look for severe cramping. If you're filling up a pad in an hour or two, that's pretty concerning. But if you just have a little bit of spotting, that's not always necessarily cause for concern. But that was for the first trimester. That was the advice I was given for the first trimester. So then second trimester rolls around after the 13-week scan, and I'm good for probably 3 weeks or something. And then I start having more spotting. And it was TMI, sorry, so you can feel free to fast forward if you don't want to hear this, but TMI, the spotting happened after I had a bowel movement, and, I did check to confirm that it was in fact, coming from, it was mixed in with my cervical mucus, so, I was pretty sure it was coming from there and not anywhere else. So I went into the ER again, because I was just really worried, and I know the rate of miscarriage at this point is low, but it's never zero. There's never a 100% sure time during pregnancy. And so I went into the ER and we sat there for like 3 hours all over again, just like at 7 weeks, right before 7 weeks. And they ended up telling us that everything looked okay. But it was a little interesting because at my 13-week appointment, she said it looked like I had a posterior placenta, which means that, or an anterior placenta, which means that it's on the front, I believe, which basically is like a cushion between you and the baby. But I had been feeling the baby pretty strong, and so I was like, either I don't have an anterior placenta, and that was like a wrong thing for her to say, or the baby's just really strong, I don't know, which I'm guessing is probably the first option, because I don't feel like my baby is probably probably not special in any way where I'd be able to feel that. So we went in, got the testing done at the hospital, and they ended up telling me that I have a low-lying placenta and not an anterior placenta. And a low-lying placenta could end up being placenta previa eventually, but they said that most of them move away. And then when the actual radiologist and the OB that was on call looked at it, I guess they ended up saying that it was just slightly out of a low-lying placenta. So I actually just had a posterior placenta, and everything was normal. So I've been given 3 different stories of where my placenta location is now, and I'm hoping at the 20-week scan we will kind of get that a little bit more cleared up, because obviously placenta previa is not something that I'm hoping for. I don't think anyone hopes for that, and I'm, if it is that, at least we know we can deal with it, but I just would really like to know how things are going to go. So yeah, that's been that. And I had spotting 3 other times since then. And when I tried to message my OB, because online, if you look it up, it says message your doctor anytime they're spotting, she simply said, "Are you sure it's not rectal bleeding?" And then that just made me really mad because, I feel like I'm not being taken seriously. So yeah, throughout this whole journey, I have felt so much joy though, because, I'm so excited for this baby. We found out she's a girl, and we already named her, we're naming her Camilla June. And I am just so thankful every day for her, and especially as when I hit 15 weeks, I started feeling a little fluttering, nothing too crazy, but now by this 20 weeks I've been feeling like full-on kicks that my husband has also been able to feel, and you can quite literally see her moving sometimes, which is just the craziest feeling if you're a first-time mom and you've never seen that. And it's so exciting because it's like, dang, that's like a whole kid in there, and I just could not be more excited. So that's really awesome. But at the same time, I have been dealing with, feeling a little like concerned about talking to my doctor, because I don't want to bother her too much. And I've asked a lot of questions about spotting, and I always get the same, "Oh, it's normal," even though it doesn't always feel normal to me as a first-time mom who doesn't know what to expect and who's really worried about things. And so it's just been a lot to deal with. Anyways, I know that was a lot of stuff to kind of sum up, so maybe I'll do a week by week at some point, or maybe like a shorter span, like a first and second trimester, and I can go through my notes that I have on my symptoms, kind of talk to you about that, because it's just been a bunch of weird symptoms all the time. And yeah, but I don't know, it's such a joyful time and so scary at the same time. And I have to really work to put my trust in God, because there's nothing I can do about this. Like I'm taking my prenatals, I'm showing up to my appointments, I am trying to live a healthy life as best as I can. I'm not perfect, and also I do love a good soda with some caffeine in it, not gonna lie, to help with my headaches that I've been having since being pregnant. But all of that aside though, I'm doing what I can to keep my baby healthy and safe, and there's only so much I can do. So it's been a big, trust game of just trying to trust that God is going to take care and is going to provide for my baby and myself and my husband, and we're gonna keep our family strong and healthy. And everything's gonna be okay. But at the same time, you know, it is very hard to just have faith sometimes, and I've been struggling with that a lot. And it's just, yeah, it's been a lot. So anyways, that's my first 20 weeks of pregnancy. I'm gonna stop yapping here because I think my husband's awake, and we're gonna go grab some groceries so I can have a little snacky, which I desperately need right now. And yeah, I don't know, if you're going through your first pregnancy right now and things seem scary, I think that's totally valid. And if you feel like your changing body is bothering you, that's totally valid. And if you think that, you know, if you're feeling anxious or worried or scared, I think all of those feelings are so valid. But just remember that things are going to work out some way, and life isn't going to be over, and there's always going to be a future for you. But yeah. Thanks for watching, and if you like this video, even though it was a lot of me rambling, feel free to subscribe. I'm going to share a few more pregnancy videos here as we go. If we hopefully get to like the point where I'm giving birth and we get through all of that, which, crossing my fingers, everything will work out, I will be posting a video there as well about my birth story, just because I feel like there's so many ways that could go. And yeah, I want to keep sharing these videos about being a first-time mom and becoming who I'm supposed to be, because it's been a journey and a learning experience every day, and it's a very big learning curve. So anyway, stick along if you like any of that stuff, and if you'd like to connect or talk about pregnancy stuff, or like, you know, have those TMI conversations, I'm so down. My Instagram is Bailey_Torosian. That's Torosian, and I would love to talk to you over there and build some community. So anyways, thanks.